All right, we will go ahead and get started. Thank you very much for joining us for our Lunch and Learn about Cobb County Water System's drought response plan and what we do in a drought and what does that mean for you. Um, as we all know, it's hot, it's summer, it hadn't rained in a while. So we definitely have droughts coming at some point. So we wanted to give you a little bit of an idea of when a drought does happen. What is a drought? When it happens, what does it mean for you? What do we do? So, a couple of housekeeping things for those of you that are in person. This is our first back to in-person lunch and learn. Yay! So we also have some folks who are virtual. So a little bit of housekeeping here for those in person. There are bathrooms right outside in the lobby, and our lunch and learns are designed for you to bring your lunch. So feel free to eat in here if you'd like. Those of you that are online, feel free to eat as well during this time if you'd like. If you are online and you do have a question, you can either type it in the chat box or just unmute yourself at the end. We'll give you a chance if you have any questions to ask those questions. So we'll go ahead and get started. So Cobb County Water System's drought response and what that means for you. I am Angie Marcus, and I am the Water Conservation Supervisor here at Cobb County Water System. And what that means is that my primary focus is educating the community on how to save water, how to use less water, how to protect water, as well as ensuring that we're following state mandates and federal mandates for conserving water. So let's talk about what is a drought. Well, according to the official definition, a drought is a deficiency of precipitation over an extended period of time resulting in a water shortage. So there's tons of definitions about what is a drought, and some of those are a little bit different than this one. But it basically means when we don't have water, it doesn't rain for a while, we don't have any water, and we're actually starting to not have enough water. So it's resulting in a water shortage. Just having not enough rain for a while doesn't necessarily constitute a drought. I mean, we have not had rain for a while now, but because we've had enough earlier, then we're not technically in a drought yet. And we'll talk about that a little bit later about how that's determined. So that's basically a drought. And a lot of times people think that picture behind on that slide, you know, the cracked ground in the middle of the desert, and that's what you think of when you think of a drought. Well, we don't necessarily have that here. Sometimes it happens where it looks like that, but just because it's a drought doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to turn into a desert. It can still look pretty good out there, but sometimes it's just that it's not raining in the right places. So a drought is over an area. You might have different conditions at your home. You're like, but it's rained 3 times this week at my house. But just because it's raining at your house doesn't mean that it's raining in the right places for our water supply. We'll talk about our water supply a little bit more as well. So there's a few different kinds of droughts because you think of a drought and a drought's a drought. Well, the types of drought are meteorological drought, and that's usually what you think of when you think of a drought. That's when dry weather patterns dominate in an area. So you're not getting that rain and it's hot typically. So high temperatures, low rain, that's a meteorological drought. So then sometimes that can come up to that meteorological drought can lead to the hydrological drought. And that hydrological drought is when low water supply becomes evident in the water system. So when our water supplies and other areas' water supplies drop and we're seeing that we're not having as much water to draw from, or when we make our draws, the daily draws for the usage, that water is going down. So that's a hydrological drought. There's also, there's also an agricultural drought. So that's when crops become affected by drought. So if you think, that's kind of more of that picture from that first slide of that cracked ground and crops are starting to die, and not just like our plants outside, but actually food sources, and they're not getting enough water, they're not getting enough rain. That's an agricultural drought. So we also can have a socioeconomic drought. So when supply and demand of various commodities are affected by drought. So things like nurseries, if you think about that, If we've got a serious drought, they're not going to be selling plants because nobody wants to plant in the middle of a drought when they can't water their plants. They can't water their new plants. So those kind of all go, you can have multiple kinds of droughts at the same time. You can have certain types of droughts without other types of droughts. Like we could have a meteorological drought, but if it's towards the beginning of it, we're just not getting enough rain, maybe our water supplies have not dropped too much, or maybe it hasn't affected some of those commodities and those supply and demands of so we're not getting the socioeconomic drought. So it's kind of a interlacing of types of droughts that we have, and you can have multiple at one time, or you can have just certain types of droughts. So Cobb County Water System, we're a very interesting situation because we do not actually treat the drinking water. We purchase our drinking water from Cobb County Marietta Water Authority, and we get that drinking water. They get that drinking water from two sources and only two sources. They get about 60% from the Chattahoochee River, and they get about 40% from Lake Allatoona. So all of our drinking water, 100% of our drinking water comes from surface water. We do not have reservoirs. We do not have groundwater. Some places they tap into groundwater underground through wells, and that's how they get their community's water. Some places have reservoirs. We don't have any of that. It's straight from the Chattahoochee River and Lake Allatoona. So they then treat the water, and Cobb County Marietta Water Authority provides 100% of the drinking water for Cobb County, which includes the cities of Kennesaw, Ackworth, and Powder Springs. They also provide 100% of it for Paulding County, and they are part of it, sorry, not 100%. They provide a little bit to Paulding County, and they also provide 100% to the city of Austell, the city of Marietta, city of Smyrna, and city of Mountain Park, which is in Fulton County. So like Austell and Marietta and Smyrna, they're not our customers. So they get their drinking, they have their own water utilities that provide it. We collect 100% of the wastewater in Cobb County, and we treat 100% of that wastewater, even from the cities of Austell, Marietta, and Smyrna. So while we purchase our drinking water from Cobb County Marietta Water Authority, and then we distribute it to our customers throughout Cobb County and in those cities of Kennesaw, Ackworth, and Powder Springs. And that's an important distinction to make in just a minute when we're talking a little bit about droughts. So drought cycles, droughts do cycle. If you think about out west, they have been in a drought for 20 years probably, and it's gotten more and more severe, and they don't really have drought cycles. They are in an extended drought, long-term drought. Here in Georgia and here in Cobb County, we do more drought cycles. So if you look at this chart, you can see every few years a drought pops up, and that starts in 2001 and runs through 2022. So over the last 20 years, we've had numerous droughts, but they don't last very long. Our longest one, if you can look to about 2007, and then that one in 2011, 2013, they might last. Long droughts last in a couple of years. They're usually not quite as severe as you're hearing about out west because they don't last as long. We get some of those weather patterns that come in that relieve us of that drought. So, but what this does mean is that there's always a drought coming. So we prepare for the drought. We try to teach our customers about what they can do ahead of time to prepare for the drought. So when that drought does come, that we're prepared and you're prepared as our customers. So who declares a drought? Like who magically says, oh, there's a drought now? It's not us. Actually, the only agency that can declare a drought is the Georgia Environmental Protection Division, so the EPD. So they are the state arm of the Environmental Protection Agency, the EPA. So the EPD is the only agency that can officially declare a drought. They can declare a drought for certain sections of the state. They can declare a drought for counties. It's usually listed as counties. So like it'll be a list of counties in Cobb County, or like Cobb County and Cherokee County and Fulton County. They can also do it for certain areas if a certain area that has a water supply, and they are the ones who draw the water from their supply. Those customers, those agencies can apply for a drought response variance. What that is let's say like how we get our drinking water from Cobb County Marietta Water Authority. we can't apply for one of those variances because we do not pull the drinking water. But Cobb County Marietta Water Authority can. So if they are seeing that we're not going to have enough water for our customers, but the EPD has not declared a drought for all of Cobb County, they can apply for that drought response variance, and the EPD will look at that and determine, okay, we're going to increase the drought level or declare a drought for just this area. So those are the two ways that droughts get declared. So it's not when you hear of we're in drought level 2, we're in drought level 3, that's not Cobb County Water System that's declaring that. We are following what the state has declared and what the state has mandated. So how do they declare a drought? What do they look at? What are some of those indicators that we're in a drought or have a drought coming? So one of them is the U.S. Drought Monitor. It's actually great. We'll take a look at that in just a second. That's a really good place that you can look as well to see how the state's doing and how our Cobb County is doing and how your area is doing. It shows like different levels of drought, like severe drought, moderate drought. So it's a really great resource that you can keep an eye on and see. And a lot of times you can see it creeping up the state, the colors on the map as we get less and less rainfall. You can kind of see who's getting the rain and who's not getting the rain. They also look at precipitation. As we know in this area, summers tend to be drier and the fall tends to be wetter. So if you think about, we had a really quick drought declared in 2020 in October. Might have been last October. But it was looking at precipitation. We didn't have any precipitation coming, but it was beginning of hurricane season. And so they only just declared a level 1 drought for that time because they knew that it was starting, the precipitation was on its way. So it was like, okay, we got to hold off for a little bit. We're going to declare a drought now, but we know we have precipitation coming. So they might take that into account as well. Stream flow. Sometimes we might not have rain here, but as you learned, our water comes from the Chattahoochee River. So if we've had lots and lots of rain up in the mountains where the Chattahoochee River starts, or between us and the Chattahoochee River, up in that area, like Lake Lanier is really, really high. Just because we haven't had much rain here, our water source is still really high stream flow. And so we're okay because that's where we get our water. So it's stream flow, not necessarily 100% on precipitation. Also groundwater. If we don't have groundwater sources, they're not really looking at that for here, but a lot of utilities do pull their water from groundwater sources. So if the groundwater table is still really high because we've had a lot of rainfall historically or in the last few months, that level may still be high. So just because it's dry right now may not necessarily mean that we're in a drought. And reservoir levels. Those reservoir levels in the areas that have reservoirs, are they dropping? Is that water evaporating? Or have we had enough rain that they're keeping that reservoir levels up? Short-term climate predictions. Is it going to be insanely hot and insanely dry for 3 months and we need to declare a drought for that time? Or are they just predicting this for a very short time? And in 3 weeks, we're going to get tons of rain and the hurricanes are going to start coming through. So it's kind of what's coming up and what's going to be happening. Soil moisture. It kind of sounds a little bit similar to that groundwater level, but as the water soaks into the soil, it stays there. If you get too much rain, it can run off, but it takes a while for that soil moisture to drop and to disappear. So if the soil is still moist, then you're okay. Then even if you haven't had that rain, then you're still okay. And the water supply conditions, which kind of goes into that. It's a partnership with the groundwater, the stream flow, the reservoir levels. Are water supplies doing okay, or are you not having, or agencies not having enough water for their customers? So that couples in with usage of how much are you using, what's your predicted use for a county. Like in Cobb County, how much do we normally use per day? Do we have, even though the stream levels may be dropping, do we still have enough to cover what we use per day? So that's the water supply conditions. So it's not just when when they're looking at whether to declare a drought or not, it's not just has it rained lately. It's a lot more complicated than that, and they're looking at many more factors than just that. So this is that U.S. Drought Monitor that I mentioned. It's great website, and this was actually pulled on June 21st of this year, so only a few days ago, and it was released yesterday. Yeah, it was released yesterday. So they release a new map every week, and you can see, looking at this map, you can see that bottom left-hand corner, that southwest and the western part. Basically, the entire western half of the U.S. is in some pretty heavy drought level conditions. The darker the color, the worse the drought is. So those areas that are that dark red, they're pretty bad off. Like out Las Vegas area, Nevada, Utah, California, and you can see kind of the weather patterns that happen in the country based on this map of who gets the rain and who's not getting the rain right now. So this is Georgia and Cobb County. And like I said, this is released a couple days ago on the 21st. So you can, and over there on the right, you can see like white, they have no drought at all. And then they're perfectly fine. That yellow is abnormally dry, which the black outline, that's Cobb County. So right now, as of today, Cobb County is abnormally dry, which means that we're moving along. And that, let's see, probably occurred since the beginning of June. So that's how quickly this can happen and how quickly that color can move up. We were white at the beginning of the month. And you can see like down along the coast, like the Savannah area down there, the darker yellow, that is severe drought. So there's little patches here, there, and the other of that moderate drought, and then they haven't had any rain in a while, and their groundwater is starting to drop some. And so they're getting a little bit more concerned down in that area. And it's you can see it, look at it a few times, and you can see like as places get rain, they'll drop off and they'll go back to white. And a lot of times you'll see that color start to go up the map. It starts in Savannah, and that area is usually the worst just because of the way the weather patterns come up through the Gulf and tend to just kind of skip over that area a lot of times. So times like this, we try to do things all year round that help to keep that drought from happening. So that's called our pre-drought mitigation strategy. So these are things that we do year round, and some of these are laws and on code that they have to be done. Some of them are just guidelines of encouragement, but this one is actually a law. So it is a state law for the entire state of Georgia. So you can only irrigate outdoors, things like your shrubs, plantings, turf grass, trees, all of that. So when you've got that irrigation or that sprinkler system going, you can only do that after 4 p.m. and before 10 a.m. And the reason that you want to do that you don't want to be out, irrigating at noon, is because a lot of times it's hot and that water is not going to be able to get to the ground because it's going to blow away if it's a windy day. It's going to evaporate. If it's hot enough outside, it's going to evaporate before it even hits the ground. So not only are you wasting water, but you're wasting your money too, because you're going to be running that irrigation system because you're going to need more irrigation because you're running it at the wrong time. So that water is not being used and you're just wasting money on it. So you want to make sure that you use that irrigation system or the sprinkler system. Like even if it's one you go out and you turn the hose on, you want to make sure you use that sprinkler system, that irrigation system, only after 4 p.m. and before 10 a.m. So in that 4 p.m. to 10 a.m. time, the best time is really at 4 a.m. If you can get a automated system or an automated, even on the ones that are attached to hose, you can get a scheduler. So get a scheduler at about 4 a.m. is the best time because that's when the wind is lowest. So it's not going to blow away. And it's also the highest dew point. So it's that dew is going to help hold that moisture in your plants and on your grass. And if you water it too late, then there's a chance, like at night, there's a chance that you could get fungus on your plants and your grass. So if they stay wet and then that traps in there, that it can cause fungus on the plants and the grass. So 4 a.m. is the prime optimum watering time for those irrigation systems and sprinkler systems. It doesn't seem to be working, so oh, there we go. So the first step in declaring a drought is we will move from right now when we're not in a drought and all we have is that that 10 a.m., before 10 a.m. and after 4 p.m. That's year round, all the time. That rule is in place. So that's 24/7, 365 days a year. So once we have declared drought response level 1, it doesn't really affect the user as much. That it really affects our end as a utility. So we have to, by state mandates, we have to increase our education and awareness. So it's more of us doing things like updating our automated system, our automated phone system. So when you call the water system, it says, hey, we're in a drought level 1. And it's mostly to raise your awareness as a customer and as a citizen that, oh, I need to start thinking about my water use. Oh, am I doing things that I'm not supposed to be doing or that I don't need to be doing? And am I using more water that we're headed in the direction that we're going to need this water more? So we'll like update the automated phone system. We'll post it on the website, do our social media, put it up on social media, push it out on that. We'll make sure we get information out to customers. Little bill messaging on your bill. There's a little section that we can do bill messaging. It'll be put on that. We'll have it posted in our lobbies and other Cobb County facilities to make people aware of their water use, because and let them know, hey, we're running low here. We're not headed in the right direction, so we need to use. We're not getting more rain. We can't control that, but what we can control is we can control our usage. So you need to help us to make sure that we've got enough water and that you've got enough water. So after our drought response level 1, it turns into a drought response level 2. And that drought response level 2 is when things change for you. So that irrigation that we were talking about and that sprinkler system that we were talking about that you can do any day of the week after 4 p.m. and before 10 a.m. now gets limited. So what it changes is it's called an odd even irrigation schedule. So those sprinkler systems, those irrigation systems, they still can only run after 4 p.m. and before 10 a.m. But if you have an odd house address, then an odd numbered house, you can only water Thursday and Sundays. If you have an even numbered house, then you can only water Wednesdays and Saturdays. And sometimes what people will do is they're like, oh, it's my day to water, I need to water, but their plants don't actually need any water. So we also encourage that of paying attention to your plants and paying attention to your yard. Do you need to water? Just because it's your day to water doesn't mean that you have to. So on that Monday, Tuesday, and Friday, there is no irrigation system at all. This is also the point in time where we as a utility start having water use patrols. So things like as our employees are out there looking, are people watering on the wrong day? Are they watering on the days that nobody's supposed to be watering? And we will educate. That's our first step, is to educate, because a lot of times people haven't heard about it. They don't know about it. It's oh, I had no idea. I'm sorry. I thought I was this day. Or you're an odd house. You're only on these days. Oh, I thought I was these days. So that's always our first step, is to educate and to make sure that our customers know what's going on. But yeah, so it's kind of where we're like, okay, we got to really get serious here, is that drought response level 2. So there are a few things that are not allowed at this point once you get to the drought response level 2. And one of those is non-commercial washing or pressure washing of buildings or structures. So you can't just go out as a homeowner and decide you want to pressure wash your house or hose down your driveway or hose down your sidewalk. And that is non-commercial. So you can still have somebody professional come out and do it. They do a better job than we do. They know how to conserve water better than we as homeowners do, instead of just out there randomly, willy-nilly spraying down your house or your driveway. That is not allowed at all when we're in the drought response level 2. Washing of hard surfaces like those, you want to wash down the driveway. Hey, yeah, I'll just hose the driveway down. You cut your grass and it's got grass clippings on the driveway or on the sidewalk, and you decided you want to hose it down. Can't do that anymore. So a lot of these are just things that are not necessary and it's just things that are using more water and tend to use a lot of water as well. So water use for ornamental purposes. So those beautiful fountains that HOAs have and neighborhoods have, even the cities, like if like downtown wherever has a beautiful fountain, they are not allowed to be running when we're in a drought response level 2, because it's a lot of times they are recirculated water, but water does evaporate and it sprays off of the fountain. Like if you look, a lot of times you get sprayed, that kind of thing, like the splash pads, things like that, ornamental purposes, those pretty fountains. So all of that is, when we're in drought response level 2, all of that stops. Washing vehicles. So I know sometimes your car gets gross, a bird might have a field day on it, sometimes pollen in the spring, but that's one of those unnecessary uses of water that when we're in the drought response level 2, that we don't need to be using the water for that. So no more washing cars. And that includes charity car washes. We get a lot of, but it's for a good cause. True, but you're still using the water a lot of times and wasting a lot too sometimes. So there are things that are allowed. So if you have a personal food garden, you are still allowed to water that because you're eating that food and we don't want to take that away from you. So you are still allowed to water your personal food garden. You're also allowed to use drip irrigation. If you've got drip irrigation on your flowers and your bushes, use it away. Fantastic. We really promote drip irrigation. One of the reasons that you're allowed to use that is that it's going straight into the ground. You don't have the waste that you have with like a sprinkler system. If you think about it, spraying everywhere and it can blow in the wind and blow away, evaporate before it hits the ground. That drip irrigation is usually under mulch or under pine straw as well. So you're getting zero evaporation from it. You're not having any waste from that. Is all going to the plants. So it is the most efficient and effective way to water things like bushes and plants and flowers. And so that's why for drought response level 2, still allowed. And hand watering with a hose with an automatic cutoff or a handheld container. So if you got a watering can and you want to take that watering can, fill it up and take it out to your plants, fantastic. And that's the same reasoning behind the drip irrigation, is that you're not wasting the water, it's not evaporating, you're putting that water on the plant where it needs to go, and it's not going on the sidewalk sometimes or on the street or just randomly wherever wherever you've got the sprinkler system pointed. And the hose with automatic shutoff, hold on just a second, that is actually like one of these. So if you're out there and you've got your hose and you can hold it and you're holding it and you let it go and it shuts off, you can continue to water with one of these. That's because you're not going to stand out there usually for 20 minutes. You're not going to forget to turn this off as well. A lot of times people will forget to turn off their sprinkler systems and they'll run for a long time and waste the water. You're not going to forget to turn this off because you're having to hold it. So those are indeed still allowed. So after a level 2, this is when things get really serious. We move to a level 3, and that is bad day. But it's when all outdoor irrigation, purposes of planting, growing, managing, maintaining ground cover, that odd even schedule, we're done with that. We are no outdoor irrigation at all. So the odd even schedule is level 2, level 3, that goes out the window. Can't do it at all. So, and for level 3, things like the personal food garden, soaker hoses, drip irrigation, all of that now becomes limited to that after 4 p.m. and before 10 a.m. So it's taken a step back with everything, with all aspects of it. So you could water that food garden anytime you wanted to, but now it's got to be, or you could run that drip irrigation because it's going to, or with the watering can because it's going to the plant. You're not wasting it even in the heat of the day. At level 3, you're really limited, and that's so we can really reduce our water usage to save it. And that's the hand watering with hose shut off, and those watering cans is also that after 4 p.m. to 10 a.m. So there are a couple of exceptions to some of these. One of them is that even when we're in level 3 drought response, if you have gotten if you got your yard sodded and turfed and everything put out, and then we declare it a drought level 3, you can get a 30-day immediate watering of new plants, seeds, and turf exemption application. So you can fill out the application and you'll have 30 days to be able to water that at the proper times and within limits, but you can still continue to water those so you don't lose the cost of the plants and you don't lose the cost of the turf. After 30 days, that cuts off and you have to fall within the restrictions again. We do keep track of that, and we do make sure that people are following that 30 days as well, because within that 30 days, that should be enough water to keep them going, to get them, even if we continue in a drought, then they should be okay. It's also, if you have an irrigation system that needs to be checked, it needs to be maintained, you're getting one installed, because sometimes they're backed up and, well, I have to install it now. You can still have that. That is still allowed to check it, to maintain it, to have it installed, as long as it is performed by a professional landscaper or a golf course superintendent. That golf course superintendent kind of helps the golf course. I don't know if maybe you know a golf course superintendent who can do one at your house, but that incorporates that aspect of it. So you can still have those things done, and we're not trying to. That helps too with that socioeconomic drought that we were talking about. That those companies and those businesses that rely on that can still function. After drought level 3, it is drought response level 3+. That is basically any additional means necessary, and that's literally what it says, any additional means necessary. So part of that is they just kind of leave it broad because they don't want to implement anything long term. So it might be, okay, well, for a week we need to do this, because that socioeconomic drought can be pretty serious for some of those businesses. So we want to make sure that we try to limit the impact of that. So some historical droughts here in Cobb County. We've had, within recent times, 2 major ones. First one was in 2007. You probably remember that one because it was pretty much panic. Everybody panicked. That was about the time that this program, this conservation program, began in response to that drought. It was a couple of years of, we were down. There was, I want to say there was like a countdown of until we run out of water. It was bad. And then in 2012 was another significant drought that the numbers, if you look at it on paper, was about the same as 2007. The rainfall was about the same. The Lake Allatoona and Chattahoochee River levels were about the same. But it was a lot calmer. It was much more zen, much more namaste, that it was relaxing and nobody was really panicking about it. So why though? What was the difference? This was the difference. It was our use was the difference. It was how much water people were using. So if you look at this chart, the line is Cobb County population from 2005 to 2021. So you can see there's a nice little steady incline of population here in Cobb County. And the bars are water use each year. So that's our total consumption by year of water. It stayed pretty consistent. And if you think about back in 2005, our water use was about twice the amount of the population. And if you look over here at 2021, our water use is substantially lower than the population. It's no longer twice the amount. So when we had the drought in 2007, there was panic because you look at projected use based on projected population, we're not going to make it. We're not going to have enough water, even outside of a drought, we're not going to have enough water in order to sustain our usage at the rate that it's going. And so that's when we came into play of, okay, people have got to use less water. We've got to work on using less water. So we're doing a good job, and you are doing a good job as our customers of using less water and being more aware of your water usage. So what are some things that you can do to conserve? So there's 2 aspects of your home and your life that you can do things to conserve water, inside and outside. So inside, Check and repair for leaks. Check your toilets. Do you have a running toilet? Do you have a flapper? Look underneath your sinks. Do you have something leaking? Just a slight drip, faucets drip. It adds up over time, especially times like this when we're getting drier and we're like, okay, we got to make sure we have enough our water use, just like this previous slide showed, just like this slide showed, is our use gonna be relative to the population of where we've got enough water to use if we're getting drier. So check for and repair those leaks. Turn off the water when you're washing your hands and brushing your teeth. Incredibly simple process, but if you think about, especially the last couple of years, as many times as we wash our hands, that water keeps running. You're wasting probably 3 to 5 gallons of water every time you wash your hands and every time you brush your teeth if you leave that faucet running at full blast. So something really simple like that. And if you've got kids in the house, that's a great water saving method they can practice as well. Replace inefficient fixtures. Toilets, old toilets. We have a toilet rebate program that if you replace your toilet with a 1.1 gallon per flush toilet or less, then you get $100 on your water bill. If your house was built prior to 1993, because those houses tend to have those higher flow toilets of like 3 gallons per flush. So every time you flush it, you're using 3 gallons. Now you can flush it and use 1.1 gallons. So there are criteria to the toilet rebate program, but it is there. And it's definitely a way that you can save some serious money. Take shorter showers. Our optimum shower is 5 minutes. I know that's hard, but that's the optimum shower. A shower head uses about anywhere from 2 to 8 gallons of water per minute. So that if you've put in an efficient shower head and you reduce it, you can be using 30 gallons of water each shower less than what you were using before. And that, again, with kids, that's a great way to have them contribute as well. So only run the washing machine and the dishwasher when it's full. If you wait, I mean, you think about it, if you're running half loads all the time, then you're running it twice as much. So wait till you've got a full load and then run it. You'll use a lot less water. Don't use your garbage disposal. There's a couple of reasons why we preach this, but for the water conservation side, think about when you're running your garbage disposal, what do you have to do? You got to have the water running the entire time. So you sit there, you turn on the water, you turn on your garbage disposal, you walk away, you forget about it. You're wasting probably a gallon of water per minute running down the drain. And scrape, not rinse your dishes before you put them in the dishwasher. So take it over to the garbage can, scrape it off, don't rinse it, scrape it off in the garbage, wipe it off if you need to, and then put it in the dishwasher. That way you're saving that water and rinsing that dish. So outside, check for and maintain your irrigation system. Irrigation systems typically a lot of times will leak. If they get struck by lightning, they just over time parts deteriorate just like everything else. And you just want to every spring get it checked. Once a month, walk around your yard. Do you have any bright green spots that have got gorgeous lush grass? You probably have a leak in that irrigation system. You want to check, make sure that you've got a good rate of absorption, that you're not running your irrigation system for so long that water's just rolling off and rolling into the street or on the sidewalk, because the ground can only hold so much water when you're watering it. And you want to make sure that it soaks all in, and then you can add some more water to it. Let it all soak in, add a little more water to it. So don't just keep it running and letting it run off. Plant groupings. You want to have your plants where they need the same amount of water. So plants that need just a little bit of water, plant them together. Plants that need a lot of water, plant them together. That not only saves on water, but it also saves your plants. If you're overwatering or underwatering these plants, you're going to lose the money that you just spent on those plants. So make sure you've got the plants grouped together to keep those good. Timing. That falls into that 4 a.m. is the optimum time. So you're not having all of your water evaporate from the heat before it even hits the ground or blow away on a really windy day or late in the afternoon when it tends to be a little bit windier. And direct the system. Make sure you're not watering the sidewalk. Make sure that our streets don't need to be watered. They're not going to grow. It's not going to make your road any better if it gets some water on it. So make sure your water is going where you want it. And not only on your lawn, but on your plants. If you're watering this plant, you've got it going everywhere, you're wasting all of that water that's not doing any good. So use a rain barrel. We actually have a rain barrel make and take workshop that you can come in totally free. make a rain barrel, take it home with you, hook it up to your downspouts of your gutter, and a good rainstorm, you've got 35 gallons of water. If we go into a drought, that one rainstorm, you can use that water to water your plants. Let your plants struggle. Plants, when they don't, plants learn to live on what they're used to. So if you water them all the time, their roots are going to stay closer to the surface and they're going to need more water. If you don't water them as much, those roots are going to go further into the ground looking for water. And when it gets dry like it is now, those plants are going to be okay because they're down where the water is. As the ground level waters drop, your roots are still down here, they're going to be okay. If all your roots are up here, your plants are going to start to die. So just because it hasn't had water, then it could still be okay. Look at your plants. Do they look like they're struggling? Then you might want to give it some water, but they look okay. They don't need, they're fine no matter how hot it is, no matter how much heat you've got. We've got a great garden here that we never water. It's a rain garden, it only goes on rain. It's thriving. And that's because we just let it be, and those roots have established themselves pretty deep. Also, plant native plants. Plants that are used to the heat, plants that are used to the dry summers, plants that are used to sporadic rainfall. Those will do better in this area, and those will live, and those will thrive better than if you have a plant that is used to cooler temperatures or high amounts of water and rain. Those are going to be harder to keep alive. Use a broom to clean the sidewalks and driveways. Like I said, when you're mowing the grass, all the grass goes onto the street or onto your driveway. Don't hose it down. Just take a broom out there and sweep it up. Much better way to clean it up. Mulch around your plants. Put mulch out. That mulch helps retain the moisture, so when it does rain, that moisture is going to stay in the ground and it's not going to evaporate, and it's going to give those plants that you've got much, much better. So a couple of inches of mulch around your plants. You want to make sure you don't put it right up next to the plants, especially around trees because of insects. You pull it out for maybe a couple of inches, but keep that mulch down in the ground. And don't overwater your plants. In this area, most plant loss is not due to drought and not due to not having enough water. It's actually due to overwatering. People think, like I was saying earlier, oh, it's my day to water, I have to water. Not necessarily. Established plants only need 1 inch of rainfall every week. So if it's an established plant and you're getting that 1 inch of rainfall, you don't need to water it on that second day. So that's a good thing to keep in mind. Don't overwater those plants. So here's some resources that we've got that can help you out with some of the drought stuff, and that if you have any questions about the drought or if you want to keep an eye on it and the levels of the drought, as well as we actually offer to our customers free of charge a indoor and outdoor water conservation kit, and it comes with some great items, like we'll give you a hose shutoff, a hose timer, that so you don't forget that irrigation system when you're able to water the lawn. If you want to do it, at 6 a.m. when you get up and run it for 10 minutes, you can put it on for 10 minutes and walk away from it, and it'll automatically shut itself off. Also have rain gauges that you can be able to check. Got a nice little line here. That's our 1 inch. So if you've got 1 inch of water in this rain gauge, you don't need to water your plants for a week. You're doing great. And you can get one of the hose nozzles. So if we do go into a drought and you've got some of these items, it can definitely help you save water. So take some of the guesswork out of it. But so I thank y'all all very much. Hopefully you understand what's going to happen if we do go into a drought. Fingers crossed we get some rain soon, and that drought index monitor, we get a little bit of white in there and those colors start dropping off a little bit. But if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat box, or you can unmute yourself and ask a question if you've got any questions. But otherwise, I really appreciate everyone coming, and thank you those that came in person for being our first group back. It was great. So y'all have a great rest of the day if nobody's got any questions. And thank you again for coming. And you can go on our website, cobbcounty.org/water, or cobbwater.org. Sometimes it's a little bit easier to remember, and apply for the toilet rebate. Investigate that a little bit, the indoor outdoor kits, and get those mailed to you as well. So thank you, and have a wonderful, wonderful day.